Hello and welcome to today's news on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies. I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with cash squeeze as rejection of old notes spread. Banks await fresh directives from CBN. POS operators defy CBS threat on charges. Association gives reasons. Naira black market booms as more bank branches close. Okada riders, petrol stations, others sell Naira. New note scarcity persists. We have made our recommendations that's coming from Customers Association. And we have four photo stories, one showing the old Naira notes being counted. Also, the other is showing President Muhammadu Buhari, Governor Godwin Emefiele, that's the CBN governor, Olukayode Ariwola, CJN. Now, on page 5, old notes deadline, governors direct attorney generals to review suit at Supreme Court. Desperate propaganda can't derail our momentum. That's coming from Obidati. You can see that story on page 9. Pupils' death. Lagos government shot Chrisland school. You can see that on page 6. While in sport, on page 31, Southampton sacks Jones as Aribo Onwachi set to get new manager. On page 8, Naira redesign, stop economic chaos. NECA urges federal government. CBN to cut. Returning old notes will encourage vote buying and kidnapping. You can see these stories on pages 8 and 10. On page 9 and 6, Turkey, Syria quake death exceed 28,000. United Nations expect toll to double. Bandit kill DPO, 4 other policemen in Niger. Stories above, federal government overwhelmed by insecurity and worsening economy that's according to Catholic bishops, warn against do or die politics as general elections draw nearer. Lastly, on page 27, Naira scarcity. Tinubu lists 6 ways out of current sufferings. PDP urges Tinubu and APC to stop punishing Nigerians. And away from Vanguard newspaper, we move straight to Tribune newspaper. Tribune this morning is leading with Naira redesign, Nigeria at risk of CBN-induced recession, governors warn. Worry over emergence of Naira black market, severe food inflation. Tinubu wants Apex Bank to heed advice of Council of State. Release Naira notes you are ordained, as Atiku tells Tinubu and APC. Ekiti sues federal government and to join Supreme Court suit. Nigerians are shunned Supreme Court order, reject old Naira notes. You can see these stories on pages 2 and 4. Bandits kill DPO, 4 others in Niger. Kogi government wants IGP to immediately arrest EFCC boss. Stories above, we are investigating death of 12-year-old Chrisland school student that's coming from police. Lagos government other school shots. Lastly, on Nigerian Tribune, invite Fani Kayode to explain co-allegation. Article tells DSS and police. You can see that story on pages 38 and 40 of Nigerian Tribune. Now, away from that, let's move straight to the Punch newspaper. Punch this morning is leading with Christian Association of Nigeria probes alleged obese 2 billion naira. PCC claims blackmail. You can see that story on page 2. And lastly, on the Punch newspaper, Naira crisis, governors fear recession, 4 more states join legal battle. You can see that story on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and it continues inside the paper. Now let's move to the Nation. Nation this morning is leading with Tinubu lists ways out of Naira crisis. Lastly, on the Nation, action, we speak louder. You can see these stories on the front pages of the Nation, and that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break as our guest will be analyzing these papers. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damlola Okunshaki, and joining me this morning to analyze the front pages of the dailies is Mr. Ali Mohammed. He's now the CEO of Magnet Communication, former editor of Daily Times and Concord newspaper. Good morning, Mr.
Good
Ali.
morning, Damilola. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Now let's move to the stories, and of course, almost all the papers are leading with the Naira crisis. Last week, despite the relief that we all had after we had the Supreme Court orders and the fact that federal government said they were going to follow the orders when they told us to continue with the continue using the old
The
Naira
old
notes.
currency.
But it seems there's zero compliance to that because a lot of people have been refusing the old Naira notes still, despite the fact that it's still legal tender. What do you think about this?
Well, um, the truth of the matter is that all over the world where we've had a currency reprint or currency change, both the old and the new currency coexist together for a very long time. The system of withdrawing the old currency or currencies from circulating is that when it gets into the bank, it doesn't come out again. Instead of the old currency to come out, the new ones that have just been launched will be pushed out. The cause of the crisis is the short time that we have, short duration that has been attached to the old currency. That is the cause of all this crisis, the scarcity and what have you. And unfortunately, most of the banks and their workers are not honest with the process of circulating the new currencies. I was in a party, in a wedding party on Saturday. I saw hawkers of currencies with these new currencies in large quantity. So how did the new currencies get into the hands? How did the new currencies get into the hand of hawkers? There are some compromises within the banking system, and it is unfortunate. The new currencies you can't get from the banks, but you get from the black market. Something is definitely wrong with the process of circulation. Some bank staff are sabotaging the efforts of government to ensure each free transition from the old currencies to the new currencies. That is my take on that. Because if currency hawkers can easily have access to what genuine bankers don't have access to, that means there is a deliberate sabotage within the banking system. Unfortunately, the very poor, the vulnerable, are the ones feeling the hate of this naira scarcity. Or if the government wanted to be sincere, we won't have these unnecessary deadlines attached to the old currencies that they are trying to withdraw. If they have allowed both the old and the new currencies to circulate together, we won't have all this pressure. And it would have been a process of quietly withdrawing the old currency without anybody knowing it. Once it gets into the bank, it doesn't come out. That's the way I think it should have been. But it has been so heavily politicized that some politicians believe that the new note introduction is targeted at them. Everything that is meant to help the economy in this country is usually politicized, and this one is no exemption. A political party said the changing of the new is targeted at its presidential candidate. I have read a lot of that. The other one said no, it is meant to give some leverages to one of the political presidential candidates. It is unfortunate, but I think in all of this, the interests of the masses should be taken into consideration far beyond any political considerations. Because the people can't have access. I passed through First Bank. Zenith Bank has completely shut down operations for over 1 week now. You can't do any transactions. I have a corporate account with that bank. I can't do any transaction, even on their online platforms. If you are trying to introduce cashless economy, this is not the right way to do it. It is not. Abroad, you still have access to ATMs, despite the fact that their economy is cashless and they have very little, how do I describe it? Very little likes for cash transactions. You understand what I'm saying? They don't engage in too much cash transactions. Whatever is done online. But here in Nigeria, cashless economic system is still alien to us. It is new to us. I was trying to transfer money to somebody this morning, and she said she's a trader. And she said, no, I should help her look for cash. Where do I get the cash from?
All right, when you're talking about this cashless economy, what of the e-naira? Because it seems a lot of people are not aware about this e-naira.
You see, we are still trying to come out of this cashless policy. They are talking of e-naira. We have so many illiterates among us in Nigeria. How will the man in a village live with e-naira? If you are not computer literate, you cannot, otherwise you are going to give all these fake 419 boys the opportunity to barge into people's accounts so freely. So the e-naira thing, yes, can exist among the educated, but don't take it to the villages. Except you want to you just want to allow these crooks to have access to people's accounts.
All right, let's still talking about let's talk about the banks now. The fact that Supreme Court said this money is still legal tender and they should still continue. But some banks opened on Saturday and they were telling people to bring the old naira notes in, and they still they were not giving out the old naira because they've not received orders from the federal government and from the CBN to open more the banks and give dispense old money to the people. And they're still waiting for the directives today. So is it that the orders of the courts does not really
The Attorney General's office is supposed to have issued an instruction or order to banks to comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court. I don't know if that has been done. If it has been done and the banks are ignoring that instruction, then that means they are culpable in all of these crises. But I want to believe that if the appropriate instructions have been given, no bank will have the temerity to want to go against it. Again, this is where we have problems in this administration. If there was a Supreme Court judgment, I think on Tuesday last week, and by today, the Office of the Attorney General has not come out clear on the way forward about that judgment, then there is a problem. What is the Attorney General doing? You and give instructions, write memos to the banks through the CBN, instructing them to comply with the Supreme Court. I don't see anything difficult for to be done there. It's just a matter of communicating from top to bottom that this is the way forward, and we won't have all these issues.
Talking about the Attorney General, the governors, they've also directed the Attorney General to review the suit at the Supreme Court. And what do you think about this?
Some governors directing the Attorney General to review it in what capacity? There has been a judgment, and there can't be another judgment apart from, you can't appeal to the same Supreme Court that has given a judgment. So what they want the Attorney General to do is not clear to me, except there are new rules in this dispensation that there can be another judgment after the judgment of the Supreme Court. I don't understand what they are saying about the Attorney General reviewing maybe they are trying to tell him to interpret it, because that's the only thing that can be done now. Once the Supreme Court gives judgment, there is no other kind of review that can be done on it. It is just the final. What we expect the Attorney General to do now is to give instructions through the central bank to commercial banks to comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court. Pure and simple.
All right. The CBN has justified its decision not to extend the expiring date for the old naira note, saying it was designed to save the nation's democracy and to discourage vote buying in the upcoming presidential election.
But there is a judgment against the decision of the central bank. the central bank cannot tell Nigerians that it is superior to the Supreme Court. There is an arbitration, or rather, there was an arbitration, and the Supreme Court has given judgment. So whatever the central bank governor is saying, or whatever reason is given for introducing the currency exchange or currency change, is secondary now, because his reasons are affecting the interest of the common man, the interest of Nigerians. It is not even affecting the politicians you are targeting, because a lot of them have access to this so-called new currency note. Did you see the bandits displaying new currency notes in the video? So if the new currencies can get to the bandits before it gets to the common Nigerians, then there is a problem within the system of circulation of money in Nigeria. And don't also forget that a particular political party is alleged to have transferred 500 billion of the new currencies out of the central bank and out of the country. For what purpose?
I think there was a video that trended weekend where we saw people outside
Nigeria. That means there is a major problem with the circulation of these currencies, the new currencies, because if the CBN really means well, the interests of the general banking public will be taken far more into consideration than the interest of the few that it is satisfying for whatever reason. How could 500 billion naira of the new notes get out of Nigeria? How did the bandits have access? Bandits who live in the forest, they don't have banks in the forest. They have access to the new notes to the extent that they took videos of the bulk of the new notes that they have and making jest of the ordinary Nigerians that are suffering to get these new notes. Then there is a problem with the system, the CBN system, and the entire banking system in this country.
So they said they are trying to prevent vote buying. Do you think this is actually successful?
No, from what is happening, can you confidently say that they will successfully check vote buying? How are we sure that these new currencies are not already in the hands of those who want to buy votes? I can't vouch for whatever step CBN is taking to check vote buying, because with all these compromises that I have seen in the distribution of the new currencies, I am not too sure that they will succeed in that area. I can say it categorically that the new notes are already with politicians, with what we are seeing. I can tell you confidently that the new notes are already with the politicians. And so the purpose of introducing the new notes have been defeated already. So they should just look for some other things to say and let there be peace in this country, economically and politically. Because if care is not taken, I see a major crisis before the election. How do you ask people who have not eaten to come out and vote? How do you ask people who don't have access to cash to come and vote? How would they move from one point to another to vote? How would you ask people that are not